morning show where we believe that we provide a service of bringing news to people that is relevant, that is important, by giving political analysis of current and past events as they shape the future that we are going into. We are just as much served by your presence being here to even watch us, to listen to us. But these are things that do give me joy. So I really, really am happy. Can't express how overjoyed I am. Dr. Ikemba, what you got going on this week?
Hey, a lot going on, but to your point, I wanted to add on to that because I think it's important for us to be aware of what's happening right now, not just nationally but internationally, making those connections. You talked about these times right now. This is what the Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, they were pushing seize the time. And they would say seize the time. This is our moment to seize the time. The reason why this empire is responding the way that it's responding locally and internationally is because of the resistance to empire, and especially internationally. Like this empire is being weakened, and so this is a great opportunity for us to get organized and to help support the crippling of this empire. Because when you look around the world, people are resisting, and that's why you seeing a shift globally as far as alignments, as far as it's like what side you on, right? People pick a side. And if you see what's happening, not just in the what they call the Middle East, but in Europe as well with NATO. We see what's happening in West Africa and East Africa. And Trump is the empire's guy to push forward white power. You know what I'm saying? He's the symbol for them, to make white folks great again. I know they say America great again, but they want to make white supremacists great again.
Yeah,
Uh,
they want to
yeah,
make white people great. Can't be again because as a people, they've never been
never
great.
been.
The only thing they've really been great at is stealing,
Yeah,
pillaging,
yeah,
plundering, murdering. This is what they're great at. They are
right.
they are great at throwing a tantrum and truly acting out. They are the people who take their ball and just go home, but then they
Mm,
come back and decide they want to beat you up because you beat them at a game. They really can't take their losses. They can't take the fact that they are not the supreme beings that they build themselves up to be. And it shows. It shows in empire. It shows in settler colonialism all over the world. But what
mm,
I do see more and more is that people are really beginning to wake up. People are really
for
beginning
sure.
to understand what imperialism is, the things that are results of settler colonialism. People are beginning to make these connections. And the more people are making connections, people are beginning to act on these things. I think that right now, more than anything, as people are waking up, they are just asking the question, what is to be done? And we are here for such a time as this to try and as much as we can, as best as we can, to show people what is to be done. We don't have all the answers, but we do have a couple of ideas. We do have some things that we have begun to test in community to see what works. One of the things that Grace Lee Boggs writes about in Organizing Means Commitment is
Mm,
that the principal goal of any formation that comes together, whether it be a cadre formation of a political organization or anything, any organization that comes together for the benefit of the community has to be focused on specific programs to test in community to see how the community will benefit, how the community will respond, if it's something that should be sustained and how it can be sustained. We literally have to go through trial and error of service to the community. And while we are in service to the community, there has to be political education that goes along with that, so that people can begin to make their own political analysis, so that they can begin to understand more why it is that formations even exist, what the goals are in creating resilience in community, so that they can see themselves as the people who will resist imperialism.
Mm, yeah, yeah. I want to build on that. I kind of want to circle back to a point that you made in regards to them never being great, right? And I'm glad you interjected with that, because that that's a narrative that they're pushing, right? That they were once great. It's implying that, oh yeah, now things aren't that good, but at one time we were, the apex of civilization. Things were great here in America, right? Despite that history of slavery, colonialism, and
Mhm.
that's still continuing to this day. That there was a point in time that we were great, and we, as African people, indigenous people, we our experience is completely, we can never point to a period of time. It kills me when people say, well, reconstruction, we was, I'm like, reconstruction, that was like one of the worst times, you know what I'm saying? Because of the backlash, the resistance to what was perceived as black progress, not black progress. I mean, anything coming out
Correct.
of chattel slavery, you can say, oh, that this is progress, right? But going back to what Malcolm X taught us, you pull the knife, the knife is in my back 9 inches, you pull it out 3 inches or 6 inches, like, what type of progress? The knife is still there.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely correct.
Like, I can still die from this wound and
Mhm.
this knife in my back, right? So, but really quick too, going back to this narrative, I was reading up on just like civilizations. Let's read some history. I'm always reading some
Mhm.
historical, and the use of the term civilization in European society didn't come about into 1700s. I mean, the term civilized was used, but not civilization, right? And so this term civilization, and definition for it came about in the 18th century, came out of France. And think of that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's right there, you pushing. So what is civilization? They begin to, again, change the narrative and make these
Mhm.
distinctions between like what is considered civilization, what is considered barbarism, and so forth,
Yes.
right? to
Yes.
to help with that rise of white supremacist ideology, right,
Mhm.
and race. Yeah, I see you.
No, they still do it. They still do it today. The only thing that I will add to that is that it shows up today, and I will just say, very, like, in a really present way right now. If you think about gentrification, how it is that when white people come back and run us out of our communities, they begin to change the names. And this is another way that they do this. I think about it because I'm from East Atlanta, and all of a sudden now East Atlanta is known as East Atlanta Village. And I'm always like, what village? Like, East Atlanta is just East Atlanta, period. Don't come and throw your label on us. Don't come and
Put
decide that,
past
oh, we're going
something.
to call it something different now just because you're here. Because you know what I think about when you say village? I think about villagers, i.e., settlers, i.e., people who came and decided that they were going to steal, kill, and destroy. So, yeah, nah, not East Atlanta Village. It is just East Atlanta. And as we continue, I think it is time at this point for us to have a break for Black Power. We've been talking enough, y'all. We're excited to be back. And that is part of the reason why we just can't say enough right now. But we also want to get back into our flow and remind you of what the Rise Up International Morning Show is all about. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And right now, we are going to have a break for Black Power, and we're going to hear from Malcolm.
But being friendly and being a friend, I think, are two different things. I think there are many whites who act friendly toward Negroes. A fox acts friendly toward the lamb. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chop in his plate.
I'd like to point out, though, that...
And I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro, who actually differs from the white conservative in the same way that the fox differs from the wolf. Their appetite is the same. Their motives are the same. It's only their mannerisms and methods that differ.
I would agree that no doubt there have been a large number of whites who have posed as liberals and as friends of the Negro and who have time and again betrayed the Negro. On the other hand, I think one could point to a large number of whites who have struggled for civil rights, for equality, and have got little or nothing out of it, other than quite a few bruises.
Give me an example.
Well, the large number of white students who have gone into the South, for example, working for SNCC and other organizations.
Not working for SNCC or other organizations, but working for the white political machines who benefit by the voting efforts of Negroes.
Okay. I'll be more specific. I would cite Herbert Hill, for example, as a kind of person who has championed Negro job rights, for example, in New York City and elsewhere. He has fought the political machine.
First time I met Herbert Hill personally was when they were picketing to stop the working on the Harlem Hospital in Harlem. Negroes for 10 years had to fight the city to get an annex built on the Harlem Hospital. Because in Harlem, we need a hospital more so than anything else. Our people are sick. Plus, we do a lot of cutting and shooting of each other, though we profess to be nonviolent. And Herbert Hill brought his forces out and stopped the working on that site. This is the first time I ever saw him. Then, when work was brought to a halt on a hospital in Harlem, the same Negroes tried to stop the work at the Downstate Medical Center in Brooklyn, which is predominantly white. They were out there for 3 months during the summer. Couldn't stop anything. And I never saw Herbert Hill out there one time. Now, whenever it takes a stoppage of something that's going to affect the white man, you find the white liberal absent. But when it involves something that primarily will affect the best interests of black people, and black people only, then that white liberal is present. Herbert Hill is the labor secretary for the NAACP. And if he was interested in black people, he would prepare a black man with the type of knowledge and understanding of the labor troubles involving black people that would enable a black man to sit in the same position as Secretary of Labor or Labor Secretary in the NAACP. I'm suspicious of whites who join Negroes and always have to be in the lead, who always have to be the head, who always have to be at the top in Negro organizations. Those whites who really have the interest of blacks at heart, let them give some advice to some Negroes and stand on the sideline. But don't join the organization and then get at the head of it and pose as a friend of Negroes.
Well, I would defend his sincerity and his commitment. And more than that, I would say that just because a person is a Negro or a black American does not mean that he's going to struggle for Negro rights or for jobs for Negroes or anything else. I think that today you could point to a large number of Negro leaders who have consistently betrayed Negroes in a whole host of areas.
They aren't really Negro leaders. These are puppets that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. These are parrots that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. You can't name me a Negro leader who has been betrayed Negroes, who has not been endorsed, sanctioned, subsidized, and supported by the white liberals.
Minister Malcolm, I'd like to...
Well, I could cite one example would be Congressman Dawson, for example, in Chicago. In Chicago, a large number of liberals located in the Hyde Park district have consistently fought Dawson and his betrayals of the Negro, and they've also fought some of the people who represent Dawson on the Chicago City Council.
The only Negro I know who is constantly fought, only Negro politician that I know who is constantly fought by white liberals is Adam Clayton Powell. And they call him a racist because he speaks so bluntly on the race issue. But I'm not, as I said, not too familiar with Dawson and his work.
All right. You heard it. You heard it.
Yeah, I love it.
Way to expand and expound on the points about so-called progress. And also, I think that it's really important during these times to be weary and be aware of those people who would pose as so-called allies. We have a lot of this feigned allyship going on, and we have been able to see that it is exactly as Malcolm described it. There's a difference in being a friend and being friendly. There's a difference in being an ally and being a comrade. There's a difference in being a person who is truly doing the work of organizing and wanting to see revolution and just being a liberal. We know this. I
Yeah.
think there are.
Hey, what if you know, I gotta go into my what ifs. What if our children was given this as political education, right? When you send them, yeah, we could do it at home, but also it should be part of their curriculum. They're in school. They're listening to this video. Let's discuss this, you know. And would they be better prepared? Would we be better prepared if we had a better understanding of what Malcolm was teaching then? Will we be making these same mistakes now? So, you know, I think it's very important to understand the design, to understand the impact of the counterinsurgency, because Malcolm told us then, why are we still having the same conversation? Why are people not getting it? Malcolm said it right there, but they profess to, you know, to be someone who supports the message of Malcolm X, and you know they want to promote Malcolm X. Yeah, I would have been with the Black Panther Party. I would have been with Malcolm X if I.
They think they would have been. It's because of what we've been shown. There are things that we have been systematically shown to romanticize certain things and make people believe that they could have been a part of that. But also when people automatically feel this sense of belonging, they don't have the need to do more research. They don't have the need to truly understand because they think they know what there is to know. And again, y'all, you're listening to the Rise Up International Morning Show right here on Black Power Media. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe right here so that you'll know when it is that we are going live. We have been on a bit of hiatus because of work that we've been doing in the streets, trying to make sure that we live up to the things that we claim that we're doing, but also because these times require action, and it is very necessary action. I do believe that had we been exposed to, and this is our generation, Akimba, had we been exposed to these teachings from the likes of whether it's Malcolm, whether it's Marcus Garvey, whether it is Walter Rodney, if we had really been exposed to the work that they were doing, not just works of writing that were published, then I do believe that things could have been different because we would have had a different type of analysis as we were growing up. And I believe that it would, well, yeah, it would have given us more, more substance. But also, I do realize that our generation is that education generation where we were just taught that if we got an education, education was going to be the great equalizer, that this education was going to show them that they shouldn't treat us a certain way. It was going to show them that we are not what they think we are. It's going to show them the greatness in us, what we can achieve, and they're going to accept us because we were doing all of this with hopes of assimilating. We were doing all of this with hopes of being incorporated into that so-called American dream, because in as much as We had shows like the Cosby Show that we were watching, and a lot of people point to a different world as the show that made them doggedly determined to go to college because they wanted the Hillman experience, and they were taught that they could get that at an HBCU. That was still not reality. That was something that we would love to see. Many of the scenarios that were um, played out on those
Mhm.
shows are real world scenarios, but they are not an accurate depiction of how things happened. Yes, we could get inspiration back then because we were living through apartheid South Africa when Nelson Mandela was in prison. And we could see an episode of A Different World where they were protesting and they were demanding boycotting, divestment, and sanctions. But the counterinsurgency, as you say, that placated us to a degree because it made us feel like it's being done and it wasn't. So uh,
Yeah, I mean, it made it,
I
it,
need us.
it. I think that there you can look at the counterinsurgency, and there were um, uh, different uh, impacts that it had. Right, various impacts that it had. One of those was to undermine the movement for Black power, for Black liberation, sovereignty, independence,
Hmm.
nationhood, and also to get people to believe that what you were alluding to, sort of integrating into the society, get an education, and so forth. This is how you solve the problem. And
Yeah.
so it was a way for them to isolate the national, which was part of the counterintelligence program. Isolate the nationalists, isolate the leaders, make them look like they were irresponsible, right? Or these organizations were irresponsible. And so stay away from them.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, look, you've got hundreds of thousands of people around this country who turned out for No King's Day. And they flooded the streets of their own cities. They flooded the streets of DC to so called show Trump that there are no kings, to say that you can't take this stance of authoritarianism and we won't do anything about it. However, right now, as we speak, there are National Guard troops in how many cities around this so called nation? Trump
Mhm.
is literally showing them that
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has an authoritarian playbook that he is going by, that it doesn't matter how many times they get out in the streets. Look what's
Mhm.
happening. And yes, we can fight him in court, but that takes time. And he still gets to
Yeah,
do many of these things. And instead of people getting the picture that going out to a protest is not stopping the agenda.
yeah,
Until
yeah,
we get it, the agenda is going to keep rolling. So, right now, we are in a state where we have occupation after occupation in US cities, and these are predominantly Black cities. And for those who have been following, you'll remember that Trump was talking all about so many cities where he believes the crime is out of control. All of these cities happen to be majority Black populated cities. All of these cities have mayors or local leadership that's Black. And Trump
yeah,
decides, hey, y'all know how to run your city? I need to come in there and show you how to run your city. And as a matter of fact, because you can't keep people under control, I'm going to send in the National Guard. And so now we have the National Guard doing the work of local law enforcement. And now you have to beg the question, how is this different from what Cop City is? How is this different from an accepted police state? Because when they built Cop City and then began to propose them all over Turtle Island, what was being done was manufactured consent for occupation. And as much as we have tried to tell people that the reason we are standing up for the people of Gaza is because it could happen here, because it is happening here. It had already been in the works. So now you're okay knowing that an entire nation is occupied by Israel and surveilled constantly, that they have no rights, that they cannot move freely, that they live in the largest open air prison in the world. And what begins to happen now? Because you decided to look away, because you thought, oh, why y'all worried about what's happening over there in Palestine? You need to be worried about what's happening here. Well, evidently, you were not worried about
Make some
what's
connections.
happening here. I mean, here we can see in this article by Al Jazeera that President Trump, and this article was written some time ago, but here we are. US President Donald Trump will extend federal law enforcement action to the city of Memphis, Tennessee, in a move that will include sending in National Guard troops and setting up a quote, Memphis State Task Force to tackle crime. Though police say overall criminal offenses are at a 25-year low. Trump announced the move in an executive order on Monday to rid Memphis of what he called the tremendous levels of violent crime that have overwhelmed its local government's ability to respond effectively. The executive order did not set out a timeline for when the Memphis Task Force, which will also include the FBI, Drug Enforcement Administration, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the U.S. Marshal Service will be deployed. Trump described the task force as a quote, replica of his crackdown on Washington, D.C. in August, according to the Associated Press news agency, which saw the U.S. Oh, hold on one second. I just lost my place. Which saw the U.S. president deploy the National Guard on the streets of the U.S. Capitol. So he is pushing for this in so many other places, Atlanta being one of these places, Baltimore, Chicago being some of those places. I know that here in Atlanta, there's a group of clergy members that have penned a letter to the mayor urging his resistance to, and actually to the governor, urging his resistance to any occupation here in the state of Georgia. I'm not knocking people for penning that letter, but I would have also loved for them to pen the same letter to their congressional representatives to ask them not to keep voting to send weapons to Israel. But here we are, right? We have another situation. Something popped off in Washington, D.C. And what were some people doing? Were these same people who were saying that we shouldn't be speaking up for Gaza, or we shouldn't be worrying about Congo or Sudan or Haiti? We should be focusing here. Were they also saying, don't worry about Washington, D.C.? We need to be worried about right here in Atlanta and what's happening now. If we had seen that and really stood up because of that, what could be different? If we had encouraged people to descend on Washington, D.C., when that occupation began, the same way we encourage people to turn out for No King's Day, what could have been different? Because people will go to DC for that penny ante BS anytime, but you won't go when there's an actual occupation. But that is the work of counterinsurgency.
Well, Black folks, colonized folks in the center of empire have become so complacent and comfortable with receiving the benefits. When I say benefits, really I'm talking about the crumbs. The crumbs that come from these colonizers exploiting, oppressing, and exploiting other nations around the world, other peoples around the world. That they don't see the connection. They don't see like what's happening around the world to other people. It's going to come home and it's going to happen to you as well. And it is happening on the soil, right? Right now, as you alluded to, as far as the National Guards coming into these cities. And mind you, there's some Sambo Black leaders who are actually welcoming the National Guard because their friend Donald Trump is going to put them in front of this white power structure as responsible leaders, and they're able to receive more crumbs, right,
Mm-hmm.
from empire, as long as they keep on talking the talk that they want them to talk. But if you look at, I think it's interesting just to sort of like look at the connections, because we've always experienced occupation.
Yeah.
That's 24/7. That's ever since we've been brought to this country, right? We've been experiencing occupation. We've been a colonized people. So that's our existence here in the empire. But what's happening now is that if you look at it, same with the rise of gentrification across America, more and more cities are experiencing it. Because
Mm-hmm.
every time you have a conversation with someone from, whether they're from Memphis, Atlanta, New York, Philadelphia, it's the same conversation, right? Like as
Yes.
far as like communities, yeah, I'm from here. Yeah, it's starting to become gentrified. The price of rent is going up. It's hard to live. I'm about to move out of the city. Same conversation in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
And if it hasn't hit your city yet, it's coming.
Yes.
If you don't get organized, it's coming. But isn't it interesting though that now that we're seeing the National Guard, the police, they were sending the police in to these communities. That's what they used to do. That was the old way of doing things. They bring
Mm-hmm.
the police in, and the repression would
Mm-hmm.
increase at the
Mm-hmm.
same time that they were looking to flood in uh, people from the white community.
Yes. Yes.
And so now what you're seeing with the National Guard around the same time, right? That now our cities, because we're Black people predominantly at, right? We went to the cities for jobs, for opportunities, right? So that's why most of the cities were majority Black, and still, some of these cities are still majority. I know that there was flight as well, and of course
Mm-hmm.
the mass incarceration, the genocide against the Black community has led to predominantly Black communities becoming, sort of just like this balance, right, in the population. But what we're seeing, I say this to say, look at the writing on the wall. The
Yes.
coming of the National Guard, they're looking to continue the policy of genocide, to wipe Black people out or to remove them from these cities, because our labor is no longer needed in these cities. There'll still be some jobs, but
Mm-hmm.
in today's age, like job, you can sit at home. These cities can just be hubs, homes where people can collect wealth from the exploitation that they
Mm-hmm.
that is taking place internationally. They don't even have to leave
Yes.
their homes. And
Absolutely.
this is a policy. So I know I said a lot on this, but I'm just want us to like really understand
No,
what's
it's
happening right now. Yeah.
perfect. It is perfect because when you think about ABC gentrified neighborhood across this country, whether it is New York, whether it is Baltimore, Chicago, Atlanta, just look at the way they are structured. These gentrified areas are built and redeveloped in a way that the white people can live, work, and play all right there. And it's perfect. It is a perfect repressive setup because it's meant to get your Black ass out and make sure that you don't come back. And they heavily surveil these areas. And like you said before, they were bringing in the police to do this, but now the National Guard is in some places. That's to make sure that where the white people live, work, and play is protected for them
Yeah.
and keeps you out. They make it this way. When you see a building that has 200 units in it, but the first floor, you're going to see a pediatrician, you're going to see a dentist, you're going to see an urgent care, there's going to be a hair salon, there's going to be a nail salon. Then across the
Hmm.
street, you got another development that's going to be other retail spaces. And then to round out the whole cul-de-sac design, you're going to have, some other services that will be there, restaurants and whatever else. Might even have something like a computer repair. There's going to be a cell phone shop somewhere. Definitely electronic stores are all around. There's going to be a grocery store because they can't live in a food desert. So there is going to be a grocery store, and there's going to be some adequate retail shopping like a Marshall's, a Burlington, a Target, all of these things, right? And it's not complete without a sushi restaurant. But
It's yeah,
but in
yeah.
these areas, they are heavily surveilled, whether it is through flock cameras or other types
Yeah, yeah.
of AI, or physically with law enforcement officers on the ground, and now it is the National Guard that's on the ground. But you summed it up perfectly, because we're seeing it happen in real time. And
Yeah.
instead of people getting excited because their area is going to look better now, they need to understand that your area is not going to be better, because the one thing that doesn't go with that look is you, and you are the target. And you have
Mm.
to make sure that as you are seeing these things happen, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, you don't have to be a person who votes to go to a planning board meeting or a zoning board meeting to make sure that you let those elected officials know that you're not with the shits. Because here it is, at the end of the day, whether you vote or not, that person who represents you signed up to represent you. They have to represent all constituents, and your voice gets to be heard. Now, if you're a person who they know did not vote for them or does not believe in electoral politics at all, they might try to throw some shade at you. But that's why you don't go there by yourself. That's why you get your crew. That is the value of political education
It's that
in
bougie stuff.
community, because some of that political education has to talk about these systems that are used to oppress us. And planning and zoning laws are nothing but legal redlining. And the faster we understand that, the better equipped we will be to do something about it. You have to understand that when they outlaw certain types of structures in a neighborhood, it is to either keep you confined to a space or keep you out of a space. And if they don't hear our voices, if they don't see our faces, if they don't know that we understand what's going on, they're just going to keep doing this stuff, and they'll get away with it because we won't do anything about it.
Yeah, and if you can entertain me for a second, I want to show this chart really quick, just to show how, when we talk about uh, how the system, the dynamic between the colonized and the colonizer, how they're able to sustain that power dynamic, and it's through the control of the wealth in
Yes.
this country. If you look at this particular chart, and I hope folks can see this kind of clearly. And this goes back. This is the Federal Reserve website, and if you go back to '89, first of all this green right here is white wealth. Just
Mm.
just so folks know, all this green represents white wealth. And if you go back to '89, you can see whites control 90% of the wealth in this country, while blacks control 4%. That was in '89. And if you go, it goes all the way up. And I'm not going to go through this, but it goes all the way up to 2025. And if you look at 2025 and what has changed, right? Whites control 83.9%, blacks control 3.4% of the wealth at this point. You see Hispanics and others, right? So I just wanted to quickly show that, man, just to show like this contradiction. It ain't changing, man. It ain't changing. And we keep on doing the same thing, thinking that there's going to be a change. What they call that? Insanity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We
You
can write a
know,
paper just on that chart right there. But I think
we,
folks
we
just
do.
really need to, the point is though, we need to get organized and we need to do something different as a people. And the I feel like what going back to this conversation with Trump is doing, what was taking place in the '80s and the '90s, they were creating the blueprint. They
Mm-hmm.
were guaranteed, they were saying what works, what didn't work, and
Mm-hmm.
now okay, let's bring the
Yep.
National Guard in. We're really going to take over these cities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's right here in our faces, happening in real time. And for those who never understood the things that were happening in the 80s, how it has led to the moment that we're in now, it's not too late to begin to understand, because it really does need to inform how it is that we are making moves these days. I saw a video on social media yesterday where a woman was talking about much of what you just alluded to with the wealth gap, but
Mm,
specifically how it is that counterinsurgency works through our own sense of convenience and the things that we are not willing to part with, whether that's the use of AI, whether that is social media itself, whether it is shopping in certain places, how it is that we're being controlled by the way wealth is controlled in this country. And there were so many people who were commenting, oh, great information, but I don't hear a plan of action.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I was thinking, you literally just proved her point. You watched this video, you got the information, but you've done nothing with it. If
Mm-hmm.
you watched that video, so many things would have come to mind. Like, at the very least, you would have thought, well, yeah, I don't have to shop at this particular place because I am
Yeah, yeah,
funding my own oppression. And we know that ethical consumption, there, it can't be a zero-sum game in a capitalist society, because there are some things that you will need, but there are also some things that you decide that you want because of convenience and because of your own sensitivities. When we decide that we are going to focus on what we need rather it's convenient, rather than something we just like to have, then we are better in a position to be able to divest from these systems that oppress us. But I find it I won't even say that it's ironic, honestly. It really is not surprising anymore that people will still see a video like that that sums things up so well, that
yeah, yeah.
almost tells you what, like, exactly what to do. But people will still say, oh yeah, that was good information, but what are we supposed to do with this?
Hey, I think it's the conditioning though.
It is. It
You know,
is.
it's the conditioning. So seeing a video and hearing, reading a book, it takes more than that. You really have to immerse yourself into uh, this work, this
Yeah.
information. It has to become a lifestyle. And there's, people talk about reprogram. That's a real thing. Hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
reprogramming, decolonizing the mind. Uh,
Mhm.
that's a process, especially like if you spent years, your formative years, being miseducated, being indoctrinated. It's a tough thing. That goes back to what I was speaking about before in regards to the message that Malcolm was giving us about liberals
Yeah.
um, and who our friends and allies really
Mhm.
are.
Mhm.
And if we was to receive that education, our children receive that education
Mhm.
young, and we were preparing them for war, our children aren't prepared for war. Our children aren't prepared for our communities being ethnically cleansed, right? The genocide, mass incarceration, right?
Mhm.
They're not being prepared to handle this and know how to maneuver in a society
Right.
where being black, where being African means that you're public enemy number one, right?
Absolutely. I
So
mean, this
they'll
occupation, this occupation is, if you're
a
not looking at
occupation.
Gaza and
And
you
in
don't
this conversation
understand.
too, like Dr. Emerson Wilson, to point you were making earlier as far as solutions, Dr. Emerson Wilson, I remember him stating one time about when he's given his lectures, the solution to the problem is sometimes in the analysis of the problem. So
Mhm. Mhm.
if you listen close enough, being attentive, you'll actually find the solution. So sometimes we get into this, oh well, yeah, I hear what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, but what's the solution? And right then and there, you
Yes.
are trying to put the onus on somebody else when the
Mhm.
solution lies within you, each and every one
Absolutely.
of us.
Yes. Yes.
We can't be waiting for somebody else to come up with the solution,
That's right.
right?
That's right. We had a comment that said we have to develop our historical and political analysis. We really, really do. Not only do we have to develop this analysis, we have to continue, like, political education has to be ongoing, got
Yeah,
to be ongoing. And we really cannot leave out class as a part of that conversation and analysis, because it does go into, how it is that we live. So many people will only want to look at things along racial lines, but we have to understand that class analysis has to be a part of this also, that it all is a part of settler colonialism, of imperialism, and how it is that it's imposed upon people. And I think at this point, as you are continuing to listen to the Rise Up more International Morning Show, that it's time for another Black Power break. We will be right back. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you to everyone who's been chiming in the chat this morning. We really appreciate you. We'll be right back after this break for Black Power.
In this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal, and white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gains, token progress. In the New York Tribune, in an editorial dated February the 5th, 1960, they pointed out that out of 11 million qualified Negro voters, only 2,700,000 actually take time to vote. This means that, roughly speaking, only 3 million out of the 11 million Negroes who are qualified to vote take an active part, and the remaining 8 million remain voluntarily inactive. And yet it is this small minority, the 3 million Negro voters, who help determine who will be the next president. If who will be the next president can be influenced by 3 million Negro voters, it is easy to see why the presidential candidates of both political parties put on such a false show with the Civil Rights Bill and promises of integration. They must impress the 3 million voting Negroes who are the actual integration seekers. And if so much fuss is made over these 3 million integration seekers, what would the presidential candidates have to do to appease the 8 million non-voting Negroes if they ever decided to become politically active? They hold the balance of power. Who are the 8 million non-voting Negroes? What do they want? And why don't they vote? The 3 million Negro voters are the so-called middle-class Negroes, or high-class Negroes, or uppity Negroes, who are referred to by the late Howard University sociology professor E. Franklin Frazier as the black bourgeoisie, who have been educated to think as patriotic individualists with no racial pride whatsoever, who believe in and look forward to the future integrated, intermarried society that is constantly being promised to them by the Negro politician. And therefore, this integration-minded 3 million minority remain an active part of the white-controlled political parties. But it must never be overlooked that these 3 million Negro integration seekers are only a small minority of the 11 million qualified Negro voters. The 8 million non-voting Negroes are the majority, the downtrodden black masses. They have refused to vote. They have refused to take a part in politics because they reject the Uncle Tom approach of the clergy politician leadership that has been handpicked for the so-called Negroes by the white man himself. This clergy politician leadership does not speak for the Negro majority. They don't speak for the black masses. They speak for the black bourgeoisie, the brainwashed, white-minded, middle-class minority, who, because they are ashamed of their race, because they are ashamed of being black and don't want to be identified with black, they are seeking to lose this black identity by mixing and mingling and intermarrying and integrating with the white society. The race problem cannot be solved by listening to the white-minded, brainwashed minority. The white man must try to learn what the black majority want. The president would be wise to try and learn what the black masses want. And the only way to find this out is by listening to the man who speaks for the black masses. And I can declare to you tonight and to the entire world that the man here in America who speaks for the majority, the downtrodden, dissatisfied black masses, is this same man who so many thousands of our people are flocking toward to see and hear. This same Mr. Muhammad who is labeled by you as a black supremacist and as a racist and as an extremist. If the 3 million middle-class Negroes are casting their ballots for integration and intermarriage, what do the non-voting black masses who are in the majority want? Find out what the black masses want, and then perhaps America's grave race problem can be solved.
And welcome back to the Rise Up International Morning Show. Don't forget, you took yourself off screen. I don't know. I hear you, but I don't see you. You're somewhere. You are somewhere, y'all. We're going to have to try to find Ikemba. This is about to be a Where's Ikemba moment.
That's the problem. I was on stage.
Look, I just saw myself. And I was like, okay, well, welcome back, y'all. You are tuning in to the Rise Up International Morning Show. And look, somebody's joined the stage here. Hello.
Hey, listen, I heard Ikemba was missing. They's like, yo, Kalonji, you just slide through real quick on the helicopter. So I said, man, let me find Ikemba. I found him. You know what I mean? And we here now. How y'all feel out there?
Feeling good. Feeling good.
Yo, he always starting, man.
What? I mean, I was just saying, bro. They like, yo, where's Ikemba? They was putting the milk box out, milk carton. I was like, yo, you go find my brother. You know what I mean? So
doing the work of my father, man.
Huh?
I was doing the work of my father.
You did the work of your father? All right, I see you. You know what I'm saying?
He said,
we out here. What's good? How y'all feeling, man? What's been going on, man?
Feeling good.
Yeah, feeling good. Listening to Malcolm break it down, bro.
Oh boy, Malcolm's not to be played with. You know what I mean? I mean, Malcolm is like a breath of fresh air. You know, I think Malcolm is the motivating factor for many of us here in North America in particular. You know, so definitely that you could never go wrong with that. Never go wrong. you know. But definitely, man, salute to you all. I see you're holding it down. Rise Up Morning Show. We about, for the folks that's listening and viewing, you can't see me because Kimber took me off the screen. But anyway, you can't we're bringing something special to you in the next few weeks, so we want you to stay tuned. We appreciate you all for riding with us. The two people that's on the screen right now, definitely salute to them for not only the work in front of the camera, but behind the scenes, just the work as far as in the field, the political work, so on and so forth. So, it's an honorable thing. And it's, in fact, I'm grateful to be a part of this platform with you all. And shout out to our sister in the background, Natasha. She said she was too fly for y'all to see her today. So she's going to work the boards. That's just the word on the street.
Look, definitely appreciate Natasha working the production for us. It's not an easy thing, and I know that it definitely takes time. So we are deeply appreciative to Natasha for doing this, for stepping up, honestly, for doing the things that she's good at, exercising her talents to benefit Black Power Media and the Rise Up International Morning Show. Shout out to Buna and Fernando, who are not with us today. Shout out to Rakeem. And of course, Kalonji Changa for making an appearance. He likes to stay incognito, but decided to hop on this morning. This is amazing. I love it. I really, really do love it. We should do this more often.
I'm going to be here more often. I only had like 5 minutes. I was on the road, but I had to just hop on and salute you all because I'm listening while I'm moving around. And you all prompted me to think about, I know y'all was talking about the resources a little bit earlier, and the fact I don't think people are aware that there are only 23 Black billionaires in the world. 23. And those 23 Black billionaires have a combined net worth of $96 billion. So you're talking about 23 Black folks with $96 billion. And then you look at Elon Musk, who's sitting on 400 plus billion. You have Bezos, who's sitting on about 300 something billion himself. So when you have 23 Black billionaires and their combined worth is 96 billion, and then you say these white boys are rolling with like 400 plus billion, they can buy all of these Negroes and still have, your man Musk can pay all these cats the money that they have and still be sitting on 300 billion. It won't even be a drop in the bucket. So when we think that, we have some type of value based on money, money's not power. You know what I'm saying? Again, it's about self-determination. So definitely salute to you all for the work that you've been doing. And we're looking forward to bringing some huge things to Black Power Media.
Absolutely. Thank y'all all for tuning in today. Thank you to my brother Ikemba for riding with me, Kalonji for chiming in. Thank you to Natasha. Thank you all uprisers. We've missed y'all and we back. We will see y'all again right here, same station, Black Power Media. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all on the next one.
Rise up.
Rise up.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one. Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces when it's on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. Like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Where we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy.